Evening and welcome to the Board of Selectmen meeting for Tuesday, July 9th, 2019. As always, this meeting is being video recorded, so please conduct yourselves accordingly. Also, our chairman, Gus Murby, is not here tonight, and so on his behalf, I will note that we would like to begin our meetings by honoring a resident of Medfield who is serving in the Armed Forces of the United States. And so if you are such a person or know such a person and would like to provide us with his or her information to be recognized at the beginning of one of these meetings, please email any one of us or Evelyn Clark and let us know. We can't get that information directly from the United States government. So without a name to recognize, we will begin by taking a moment of appreciation for our troops serving in the Middle East and around the world. Thank you. And in Gus's absence, we need an acting chairman. So is there a motion?
I would move that, that you act as the chair for this evening.
I reluctantly second. So all in favor?
Yes.
All right. Nothing for citizen comments. So our 7 o'clock public hearing, an application to solicit. And I will note that the following legal notice was posted in the press, formerly known as the Medfield Press. A legal notice, Town of Medfield public hearing. Notice is hereby given that under the provisions of Article 4, Section 21 of the Town of Medfield bylaws, a public hearing will be held on Tuesday, July 9th, 2019 at 7 p.m. at the Medfield Townhouse, 459 Main Street, on application of Donald Williams, representing Renewal by Anderson Windows, Northborough, Massachusetts, to solicit in Medfield. All town boards and interested parties are invited to attend. From Gustav H. Murphy, Chairman, Board of Selectmen. That was run in the press on July 5th, 2019. Mr. Williams?
I'm not Donald, I'm actually his supervisor.
Okay, the boss of Mr. Williams. Welcome.
So, yes, Neil Orzick, Renewal by Anderson Windows. Actually, my third straight year here.
Welcome back.
Thank you. So, seeking permission to go door to door, talk about our products, offer some services in terms of a free estimate on windows. Obviously, being the company that we are, 115 years old, try to do everything by the book. Obviously, not everybody's happy when we come around. Certainly respect that, but we try to do everything, by the way the process is expected. So,
And what are the hours?
usually we start, going to homes around 2:30, 3 o'clock during the week. Wrap it up this time of year around 7:30 at the latest.
Okay, just during the week or weekends too?
Our weekends usually Saturdays 9 to 4. So usually. By the time we get out here, it's about 10:30, 11.
All right, we typically ask as well that when you are going to be soliciting in town that you let the police department know.
We always check in.
Yep. So suspicious person in blue shirt in neighborhood can be, identified as
It's expected when we go out, I'm
solicitor.
sure.
Right.
Or just general annoyance, I'm sure.
Sure. Have there been any issues with renewal in the past?
No, I checked with the police chief today, and she looked at the records, and there were no issues the last several years. So
Okay.
she had no issue with it. As long as you check in with her every
Absolutely.
day you'll be in town.
And what period of time is this for?
Probably should only take a few weeks. I'd probably ask for a month just to be safe. Obviously, if it's pouring out, we're not going to come out here.
Through August 9th?
That'd be perfect.
That's a Friday anyway, right? I think August 9th. Maybe through August 10th, that's Saturday?
Sure. That'd be
Through
good.
August 10th. Pete, any questions?
No.
All right, so can we have a motion to authorize, any questions from those in attendance? This is a public hearing. Okay, public hearing is closed.
I would move to authorize the application to solicit for the next month in accordance with the materials presented.
Second, all in favor?
Yep.
Aye. All right, thank you very much.
Nice.
You have a check from her?
You got a check. All right. Action items. We are requested to vote to authorize the town administrator to sign a letter addressed to the Department of Housing and Community Development regarding Medfield Meadows, 41 Dale Street, requesting a local preference. This is the standard request that we make with every affordable housing project in town, that 70% of the affordable units in the affordable 70% of the affordable units have a Medfield resident preference when the lottery is conducted for those units. So this project consists of 24 rental units, 6 of which are to be affordable, and 12 condominiums, 4 of which will be affordable. I actually think 3 of which will be affordable, but 3 or 4 of which will be affordable, and there'd be a Medfield preference then on 4 of the 6 rental units and 2 of the 3, either if it's 2 or 4, it's 2 or 3, it'll be 2 anyway. 2 of the condominiums so far, we've been successful. The HCD has granted the Medfield preference for all of the projects where we have so far requested it. Pete, any questions on this?
No, I would move that we authorize the town administrator to sign.
I second. All in favor?
Yep.
All right, that's done. Let's see. All right, town planner Sarah Raposa requests us to vote to sign. We approved you signing the letter for Medfield Meadows.
Oh, perfect, thank you.
Town planner Sarah Raposa requests us to vote to sign the townwide, requests us to vote to sign the MSHDC consultant contracts for the following: utilities investigation, Pear, zoning, McCabe, and hazardous materials.
And we are going to move forward with the Pear and McCabe contract, but we're holding hazardous materials. It was not completed in time for this meeting.
So what is the, so Pear here, it's schematic water and sewer design, and that's what it is, Sarah, you want to talk? You're here, Sarah. Here is town planner Sarah Raposa herself.
I'm going to turn over the microphone to Ken Richard, member.
Hey,
And good evening. I'm
Ken,
Ken
how are
Richard.
you?
I'm good gentleman and Ms. Administrator. I'm here only to answer questions to the extent that you have questions before you authorize Sarah to, or before you approve these.
all right, do you want to describe just generally, I mean, I think I know what the McCabe contract will be doing, working on the zoning proposal for town meeting. Pete, do you have any questions on McCabe?
No.
Any questions on McCabe? John, do you want to ask a question?
Well, I think the questions are fairly basic, you know. What are we contracting for, and at what price, and when must it be delivered? And how
So-
is the PAR contract, which PAR was a sub for McCabe during the original planning up there, is that independent of McCabe, or is that part of McCabe's? Why are we doing this and not many other inquiries as to the impacts of development on the hospital?
Mr. Richard, do you want to answer the question? I mean, I can tell you the McCabe contract is for $12,942.50.
To answer John's question, first and foremost, the purpose of these particular contracts, and I don't know whether we expected every contract we ever going to enter into be presented to you on one day. I think that's a little unreasonable. But the point of this was our committee has been asked to put more specificity and get some clarity on some of the very large dollar items that would come about should the town move forward and do a development on the state hospital. I can say off the top of the bat there are three significant costs for which we only have anecdotal evidence, which we don't think is sufficient enough to ever give a clean case or clear case to the citizens. So those three items would be like demolition, water and sewer, and zoning. So tonight we're bringing forth contracts to engage McCabe to do work with us on drafting the necessary zoning that may facilitate future development. That's contract number one, and as you said, Mike, that contract is $12,493, and the work is, in terms of timing, the work's expected to be done in time in advance of a special town meeting to bring zoning forward. The second contract with PAR Corporation is directed toward the water and sewer topic. The contract itself is for $39,500, and this contract would include services such as the cost of adding water and sewer to the site, based on the. By the way, all of this is predicated on the Medfield State Hospital master plan, all of which we know is subject to some obviously alteration, but you have to work off of something. So it's going to include understanding the water usage and the constraints upon that may be have to be dealt with, whether it be issues of flow or availability and the like, and the cost of bringing water to that site up at the hospital. And so what they're going to help us with is a hydraulic model, probable cost construction, a financial analysis, and commentary and review of the MIPA application that's been previously submitted. So those are the two contracts that we present. I should tell you that the committee, including Gus, we all met on this a couple of weeks ago, and the comments that we had in our meeting have been incorporated into revised scope of work, and I recommend that you approve these contracts.
And then is the third contract that's listed on here, but we're not going to vote on tonight for hazardous materials, is that to get demolition costs?
No, actually, demolition would be different. Is that not correct?
No, it's actually, it is, that's correct. It's remediation and demolition.
Okay. Right, okay. And then I know there is the information that John Thompson has provided on the costs of the 10-year sort of steady state costs of that. Is there any more work to be done on that, or is that kind of is what they've come up with sort of the best estimate we have?
That information has not been provided to the development committee, so I don't think you would have any comments on that.
Okay. I mean, Gus should forward it. It was provided to the selectmen, so
Well,
it's easily found. Yeah. So, Mr. Massaro.
I just had a question on the scope of work for Pear. The other half of the issues and concerns about capacity and usage and all the rest of that is the town's ability to meet those requirements. And so I understand, at least from attending the meeting that the development committee had, that some of what Pear was looking at was the connections at the hospital, how much sewage, how many feet of sewage would be required, water mains, et cetera, et cetera. As part of, so my question is part of Pear's scope of work have anything to do with what the town's capacity is, or whether the town has adequate sewer lines or anything?
Bill, great question. In regard to that question, the Pear group is going to work very, very closely and coordinate with the Medfield Public Works Department and the Planning Department to bring to the table concerns that other, let's call it public boards, would have as it relates to that. So, our committee certainly isn't knowledgeable about capacity and other issues. So the consultant is going to closely coordinate with town department heads who have that knowledge.
I had two questions. One had to do with the hazardous materials. I know in the past that we had trouble getting estimates for the demolition because we weren't going to actually pull the trigger and hire to demolish. Are we going to have that problem again?
We don't have the proposals yet, but conceptually, it's not to do demolition. They are current demolition costs based on the existing conditions. Sorry if that doesn't make a lot of sense.
The only thing I could say is the demolition proposal is not on the table tonight. That I understand that the town is working with either Select Demolition or North Star on a potential contract, but that's not been worked out yet. So the demo, the rehab, the hazardous waste, all that stuff is another topic to be addressed along the line.
So instead of issuing a request for proposals, we're going to get maybe an opinion of cost or something like that, so that we'll just work around the problem that we had in the last time, I guess.
I think, Pete, the issue here is going to continue to be that the master plan was constructed with, financial models, and there were assumptions made for the master model, for the master model itself, the economic model. And at the time, some of those larger topics were not corroborated by, if you will, by advice from, professionals who do it. So, we're trying to identify the big movers such that when someone gets in front of a town meeting and says the cost of demolition on average or whatever is X dollars a foot, then we can say that with some degree of veracity.
Yep, all right. Then the second question I had to do with, I had a conversation on Sunday with John Thompson, and he told me that Pear is saying that they're going to need 90 days to turn their work around once they get a signed contract, so that that starts to impact when we can have a special town meeting, I think, so that, I guess that's just that's just the way it is. So, okay,
Okay.
not
All
a
right.
question, just a comment then.
What, microphone?
I didn't hear an answer to what the process was in selecting Parr and selecting McCabe again. Was this?
Ken, do you want to answer that?
Because McCabe was well-founded in the property and so forth, but why did we waive any requirement to go out for other interested parties?
John raises the same question that those of us on the committee raised, just to make, unfamiliar as we might be to town procurement regulations. We asked ourselves, since we were presented with just the one estimate, and I believe there was Gus or Sarah knew the answer why it wasn't sort of broadly sent out in to multiple vendors.
That engineering is exempt from procurement laws. And then McCabe has an advantage with the zoning since she worked on the master plan, so we get a better,
Plus,
more
the amount
efficiency.
I think that I heard is under the trigger on 30B.
Correct.
yeah.
Mr. Massaro?
So in support of Parr, they are probably, as a company, the most knowledgeable about the existing conditions up at the hospitals. And one of the things that they did, they were hired to close the sewer lines and disconnect basically all of the buildings from the drains and all of the buildings. So they know the property very well. My only concern, and I had raised this at the meeting, was that it seems like the people within Parr who worked for McCabe and the people who did the work for DCAM and for the town on the hospital property weren't talking to one another, because there was some confusion between the results of what the two groups had done. So I had pointed out to the committee that I would suggest that they at least check their internal communications on the history of the project up there, as well as whatever they need to do for the rest of this new job. So.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not clear as to what the answer was to the question. Did you answer it, Mark?
There's two parts of it. Engineering is an exempt under 30B broadly. Engineering broadly has been taken out of procurement statute. Doesn't have to be procured per the statute. And then there is a general, they've increased the thresholds where you actually have to go through the bid process, and the amount I heard from McCabe was what?
$12,900.
That's way
It's
below
way under.
where you have to go through the whole process. You can just get quotes.
There's two parts to it.
You didn't hear it? I want to make sure you...
Parr is not the only place that responded.
No, okay. I think it's been answered, but I'll leave it to him. There's one other
No, I
point.
think his first question is the legal question about did it have to go out to,
Right.
obviously it didn't, or it would have. The second question is why did you pick these two as opposed to picking somebody else, even though you didn't have to do an RFP? I mean, I think it's fairly obvious you picked McCabe because McCabe worked on the whole master plan, and the judgment is that the master plan is going to be voted on by town meeting. I think that's probably the answer.
Yeah, Parr was a sub on the master planning process, so they have the familiarity as well.
Were there other interested companies?
I didn't reach out to others.
Final point for me, I want, in the interest of full disclosure, this task number 105 talks about the opinion of probable construction cost. And in the Parr repair document, it says that the basis of their costs assumes that the future water and sewer will be installed by the town, or at least paid for by the town, and therefore will reflect prevailing wage. My understanding after, when our committee met, we felt that that was not appropriate language, for the main reason being there is no commitment, whether it should be in a document or public, that would lead one to believe that the town has made a decision to go forward and that we are going to do water and sewer and the like. So our request in the final document is that they describe it that they will provide pricing on whether it's done in a public or non-public procurement process. So if anyone were to read this as is, our committee would be leery if people were to come to the conclusion that, oh, I guess the town's going forward and doing water and sewer up there, and that just isn't the case. And I want to make that clear that, what we're doing is in no way encumbering or suggesting that there's a conclusion's been reached as to any future development up there until it's approved by the town.
Sure, but we need a number.
Both ways, what you said.
That's what I mean, yeah.
So it has to be both ways.
Yeah. Okay. I
And
mean,
I'm-
I don't think, look, I don't view any of this as a commitment to do anything. And I don't think anyone should view this as a commitment to do anything. So, I think we need this information. We want to know what the answer is. We've spent a lot of time hypothesizing about these numbers. Those hypotheses, oddly enough, tend to flow into the preconceived notions of the speaker as to what the facts are. If you want to do one thing, the facts help you there. If you want to do other things, we need actual facts. And so, again, as I certainly will never support spending $1 of town money on any of this. So, but I'm comfortable we need a number. So, Pete, anything else?
No, no.
Yes, Mr. Harney.
If I may, the point that I'm struggling with here is that the whole thrust of this is towards development. And if we're going to do that and be fair to a town meeting, whether it's the zoning or actually disposing of meetings, we should be looking at a number of consequences to this, not just the water and sewer costs and so forth. We should be looking at the consequential costs in a great number of ways on the community. And I'm wondering how, if your committee is favoring development up there, as I know 2 members are, and I don't know about the third at this point, but if that is the persuasion of the Board of Selectmen, then I think the town ought to be alert to that, and that we ought to be looking for all of the answers. The questions are being asked here are important, and we ought to answer. But there are many, many more important questions that need to be answered, and this has to be looked at objectively, completely, and transparently if this town is to vote honestly on it. So I don't know how you're going to go about answering all of the other cost questions involved. Personnel, roadways, traffic, home equity and impact, and so forth. It's important the town see that this is done fairly. And to this point, it hasn't been. I understood at this last meeting of the Development Committee that that one of the members is going to recuse himself down the way and possibly a second member down the road. Is that true, Sarah?
It was stated that there may be conflicts of interest down the road when a decision is made, if there is a disposition, if the companies that they work for may be interested in it, but that, I think, was disclosed right from the start of the committee.
Yeah,
where
that
someone
would
was
be true of
born.
anybody on any board with any interest whatsoever would have to recuse themselves. So,
It could be true on this board when so many of the members do
Well,
have.
well, that's kind of the rub, right, John? You can get people who know nothing and have no relevant experience, or you can get people who have some relevant experience, but because they're in that profession, might have to have a recusal. And so if you want a board consisting of people who have no preconceived notions, no opinion, and no knowledge, if you can find those 5 people, we'll consider them. But I think this is beyond the scope of this discussion. I think you'll get no argument from Pete or me that the town needs facts. It's got to be done objectively. It's got to be fairly. There's a lot of stuff to consider. What we have on our agenda to consider tonight are 2 contracts. And I think we've thoroughly discussed the 2 contracts. These 2 contracts do not mean we aren't going to look at anything else. These 2 contracts do not mean that we are committed to development. What the board has decided is that the zoning proposed as part of the townwide master plan is going to be presented to a special town meeting. And the effort now is preparing for that special town meeting, providing people with information on what it means to vote for or against that zoning. That's what we're doing, and we're going to vote on these contracts. I'll give you 30 more seconds, but right now we're talking about 2 contracts.
I would simply repeat my urging that that you take the same due diligence in finding the answers to all of the important questions as you're taking now. And I have only respect for the board members' knowledge. It is first rate. But they are members of the construction development community. And that says a lot to the town.
Thank you. Do we have a motion? Or any
Yes.
comment?
Well, I would just point out, you said the townwide master planning committee, and it's the Medfield State Hospital Master Planning Committee that.
The development committee that we're talking about.
Development
Yeah,
Committee.
yeah.
And I would move that the, let's see, Selectmen sign the consultant contracts for Bear and McCabe.
Second? All in favor?
Yep.
All right. Now we're being asked by Sarah again to vote to sign the townwide master planning committee consultant contract. And this is with
Community Circle.
Community Circle, 6 Dover Lane, Lexington, Massachusetts. It's for $150,000.
Correct. The Townwide Master Planning Committee met interviewed two firms at their last meeting on the 27th of June, and they voted
10 to 1, but there was a telephone person who expressed an interest and didn't vote, so it would have been 11 to 1 if that telephone
Okay.
hookup
all right,
had voted.
for Community Circle.
Okay. And how many other bids do we get?
There were 4 total, and 2 were interviewed.
Okay, great. Were they interviewed by the whole committee, or?
Yes. Well, there were some absentees, but it's a large committee, and we haven't had a full
I can imagine. With 15
meeting yet.
members, you're not going to get them all there ever. So,
We actually have 16,
16.
to be honest. I know it was meant to be 15, but
We appointed one extra.
yeah. I was at that point.
And one of the nice things for the town is that we've had experience with most of the people that are forming the group that Community Circle is bringing together. Chris, you mentioned that you had had experience with Daphne Politis. I haven't had experience with her, but Martha Lyon did the Vine Lake study. That was pretty impressive. Judy Barrett's done a number of housing things for the town, housing production plan, I think, and others.
Daphne participated she was one of the subs on the downtown improvement plan.
Actually, Judy looked at the hospital project at
Right.
one point she was working with
Mark Bobrowski.
Mark Bobrowski, yeah.
Yep.
So
Any questions about this one? Anybody? All right, we have a motion?
I would move that we sign the contract with Community Circle.
Second, all in favor?
Yep.
All right. We were requested to vote to appoint William McNiff for a term expiring in 2021 and Michael Witcher for a term expiring in 2019 as full members of the Zoning Board of Appeals as recommended by the ZBA. I believe both have been associate members.
Yes, I'm just going to ask that we change, Sarah and I reviewed it today, I'm going to ask that you change Michael's term to end in 2022, so that we're not reappointing him
Filling
next
for
month.
the-
Yeah,
okay.
filling him for
So
next
filling him for the remainder of this term and then to a term ending in 2022.
Thank
We
you.
have a motion?
So moved.
Second? All in favor? Aye. We have received letters of resignation from Board of Health members Jen Polinsky and Martha Egler. So we now have 2 vacancies in the Board of Health. If anyone out there would like to be on the Board of Health, particularly if you are an engineer, I know we have a need, is it really a sewer engineer and a
Septic.
septic sewer engineer?
Stormwater.
At the moment, you
The-
do not have an operational board. of health.
Right.
Yes, so until we get at least one, Mark has
Right,
informed me,
so-
we cannot hold any Board of Health meetings or hearings, which could be problematic for people looking for review and
Right.
could get it by default.
So if you are interested and willing to help out the town by being on the Board of Health, please reach out as soon as possible. We are requested by the town administrator to vote to adopt the IRS mileage reimbursement rate for employees. Christine?
So I thought we had done this back in 2006. We had adopted a mileage rate change in 2006. I think we were at 14 cents and we went to 44 cents back in 2006. One of the department heads brought it to my attention a couple weeks ago that we were not following the IRS mileage reimbursement rate, which was 58 cents. I brought it to Joy's attention and she said that the vote back in 2006 was just to increase it to the 44, but we didn't actually formally adopt following the IRS rules. So I'm asking that we change that and so that it automatically changes when the IRS changes it. Just for research purposes, it has only increased 14 cents over 13 years.
Well, it's usually a good idea to do what the IRS says.
I think it would be better.
So,
So,
any questions, Pete?
No.
All right.
Not at all. I would move to have the town mileage reimbursement track the IRS mileage reimbursement rate for employees.
And I second. All in favor?
Yep.
All right, we have a request from DPW Director Maurice Goulet to vote to sign a contract with CJP and Sons Construction Company, Millis, Massachusetts, to replace the Pleasant Court water line. I think this is the water line that was causing a substantial amount of brown water
Correct.
to the houses on Pleasant Court, and so they will now have clear water. I looked at this when you sent it out. I didn't have any questions. Pete, do you have any questions?
No, I don't.
I didn't even have any questions. Bill, questions about the water?
I do, actually.
All right. Oh, the microphone. Everyone at home wants to hear this question.
It's a question and an observation. So I just, for the heck of it, divided the distance, the 220 feet, by the total cost, and came up with $158.53 dollars per linear foot. And I checked it against the master plan estimates that came in at $300 a linear foot.
You're talking the master plan for the state
For the
hospital?
state hospital, yeah, that pair did. So I was kind of at a loss to figure out whether it's because of the size of the project at the hospital, or whether it was because of the small size of the job that's being done for the town. So I would ask that somebody take a look and check with DPW. What did we pay for the water main work on Hospital Road when the new water tower went in? And is there a linear per foot number for the water main there that we could at least have in the back of our minds when we start reviewing numbers that come in against the master plan for the hospital on the water main work? So again, just an observation and a suggestion.
Yep. So somebody should get those numbers to pair. Mo Goulet should have those to get.
yeah, I believe Pear is going to be working closely with Mo on the project, so.
Now, is this I mean, as when I read this, is this, I mean, it says this is a temporary water line, or is this both a temporary?
I think this is the temporary and the,
They already
and the
did the
fix.
temporary,
Yeah.
and they, okay, so this is, they done, that's what I was trying to figure out, which was which. They did the temporary, and now this is the,
This is
I
the,
see.
the
Okay.
final one.
all right.
Chris, why were we getting brown water? Did we have a leak or something, or
I think the pipes are just old.
just beyond their life?
It was on the water and sewer master plan to be replaced at a certain date.
Yep, okay.
And
It doesn't loop anytime you don't have it, it just
Yeah.
tends
Oh,
to
it
goes to the
sits
end.
there, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
It doesn't come back.
Yeah.
And so
And it happens
corrodes
over the time with
faster.
flushing.
doesn't flush itself except
Yeah.
when they flush.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any questions, Pete?
No.
We have a motion.
So moved.
Second?
Yep.
All in favor?
Yep.
Aye. All right, we are requested by Maurice Goulet to vote to request or to sign? Being asked to
Sign.
sign, right?
Yep, vote to sign.
Requested to sign Chapter 90 reimbursement for research. Oh, I'm sorry. Request to select a vote to sign the contract with VHB for pavement monitoring in the amount of $15,000. So this is the
Yes.
annual pavement.
This is actually, the $15,000 is to monitor the two projects. I actually mistakenly put reimbursement. I was getting a little ahead of myself. It's actually a project request for South Street Extension and the roadway preventative maintenance program. The $15,000 was for VHB to monitor the pavement to make sure it's at the right temperature, that it's being laid properly, and that $15,000 is reimbursable under Chapter 90.
Okay, and then he's also asked us to vote to sign to request Chapter 90 reimbursement for resurfacing of South Street Extension, as well as the roadway preventative maintenance program. The South Street Extension resurfacing is $275,000, and the roadway preventative maintenance program is $115,000.
And that's an actual project request, not a reimbursement just yet.
Any
They haven't done
comments,
the work
questions?
for anybody wondering why.
Any comments, questions from anybody? Pete?
No, I would move to sign the contract with VHB.
Second, all in favor?
Yep. I would move to request Chapter 90 reimbursement for the resurfacing of South Street Extension as indicated.
And the roadway preventative maintenance program?
Yep.
Second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, license and permit consent calendar. Joshua Kane, manager of Jack's Abbey Brewing Company, requests one-day malt beverage permit for 2 events at Rocky Woods, Saturday, July 13th, 6 to 8 p.m., and Sunday, July 21st, 1 to 3 p.m.
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Yep.
Town administrator update.
I have nothing tonight for you.
All right, selectmen report.
So the Medfield Foundation had their final meeting of the year, and I had read in the paper that the chief, the new police chief, was interested in learning about the town, so I invited her to come to the Medfield Foundation meeting, which she did. So that was nice to have her there. Went to John Wilhelmi's retirement party. That was a nice event. Sad to have him leaving town. And I was going to mention about the townwide master planning committee hiring community circle, but we already did that. It was actually a very interesting interview process for the 2 final candidates. We learned a ton of information, and then when we went around the room afterwards, it was very interesting that it broke down in 11 to 1 as it did in terms of the one candidate. The Medfield Energy Committee has started to look at the possibility of building in the town of Medfield having a net zero carbon effect, so that you can build things such as passive house. I'm learning about new types of building that I didn't know about 2 months ago. And apparently the cost of building to these standards is started to really get close to the actual cost of building under a regular building permit. There was one study done in, I think it was Pennsylvania, where the cost actually of doing the passive house was a little bit lower than, for some reason, than the regular building costs. But given the fact that there is this confluence of the super high insulated structures with the regular building, the Energy Committee is interested in the town becoming a proponent of less carbon, I guess, to better for the climate, better for the environment. You get better buildings out of it. In a passive house, I think you have super insulation, you have less issues with temperature fluctuations, you probably have much better acoustics, you have sound deadening. And the biggest project in town that we're facing is the Medfield State Hospital, so that the Energy Committee has started to look at how they could possibly help the town, maybe have that project in some way be a net zero type of project, and see if that's of any interest to the town. So that they're working on that. They'll be coming forward to the Board of Selectmen at some point with some information about how this is working. There are a couple projects in Newton, I think, that are already being built under this sort of passive house standards. The big developers, once they got paid to get educated through their consultants, their energy consultants, decided that it made sense. So it sounds like a good thing. Then the final thing that I would bring up is a name change for our Board of Selectmen. When I went to the Medfield, not the Medfield, the Mass Selectmen's Association meeting last month, at their leadership conference, they were talking about the names of boards of selectmen, and they were asking people how many are still have the term select man versus select board. And there was a fair amount of discussion about it. The Westwood selectman who was there said that they've changed, and the way that I asked him how they did it, because of it being, as I understood from Mark, that it was a charter change, that you had to do a charter change to do it, and so that I thought that we had to do it through town meeting. He said that in Westwood what they did was the Board of Selectmen just voted to change their name to Select Board from Selectmen, and then they, at town meeting, the subsequent town meeting, it was an annual town meeting item, and there was just no controversy, and it was voted. So I would suggest that we think about doing that approach.
I am going to suggest that I'm not going to get into a linguistic discussion in history and whether sitting here we're going to change 300 and 400 years of history to reflect the current whims of people. I will say that Select Board, I think, is a terrible name. And so in a town that was founded in 1649, we should not have an ungrammatical and unelegant name for the governing board of the town. So if you want to change it from Board of Selectmen, I think you'll have to come up with better than Select Board.
Selectees,
I
then.
think it sounds terrible. And so if you want it to be an executive council, a town governing councils, you can be councilors or whatever would make, you know, people feel better who are offended by Board of Selectmen. But I think select board is a terrible name because it doesn't work grammatically. Select is not a noun. And so, and I think it certainly has to be a town charter change as well. So
It
I'm
should
not,
be
I'm
aimed
not
at that,
going to
yeah.
fall on my sword about this one, but I think select board is a dumb name. And I think it reflects poorly on the towns that have just kind of reflexively switched to that name without actually, you know, studying their Strunk and White before doing so.
Town of Medway just went through charter changes. It was to be special legislation submitted. Everything else went through without discussion. The Board of Selectmen name change was an extended discussion, and town meeting overwhelmingly voted it down.
Yeah. No, I think it should be. I think it should be a town meeting vote and debate and discussion. I mean, it is a, you know, it's been that name since 1650 or whatever. And so I don't think the three of us should sit here and change the name. And as I said, I don't think select board is a good is a good substitute for it. So something more elegant that might be recognizable to some of the founders of the town as an English phrase would be preferable to me if we have to change it. I'm not by no means suggesting that I agree with changing it, but I will not agree to change it to select board.
Legislature is
Yeah.
special legislation in the
Yeah.
absence of going to a full-blown.
Yeah, I think that
I think
kind of
what
change
Westwood
should
did
go
was
through
They
the.
just voted the change, and then they did the charter
It's
change.
not legal.
Oh.
Probably is not legal,
Oh.
right? So, all right, our next meeting date of the Board of Selectmen will be July 30th,
Correct.
and then August 13th and August 27th. So, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? All in favor? All right.